The current crypto market has been incredibly unpredictable and volatile. We've seen sideways movement for nearly 200 days for Bitcoin and altcoins bleeding relentlessly. The past week, we've seen altcoins rally back up and some good moves. So we're going to dive in today's video and actually look at what's been happening. So it's been nearly 9 months since my last video. So welcome back everyone to the channel. I've been heavily invested in crypto the past 9 months, doing a lot of research, looking for good coins, good entry positions, and trying to figure out what's actually going on. And to be honest, it's been pretty rough, I think, for a lot of people. So it's pretty surprising that it has actually been nearly 200 days since the top that we saw around March earlier this year, which 200 days is a long time, right? It's honestly going like quick because people that are like heavily invested in crypto, like you watch it all the time and doesn't feel like it's been 200 days, but it has been quite a while. And so what does this mean for the space? I guess it ultimately means that we have to see a move either through the upside, through this resistance, which, as you can see here, we've hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 5 times tried to break through. We never really were able to. And then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times to the downside. That again, we held support, which is nice, but ultimately we've been in this zone. And one of the main things with this that we've seen is that Bitcoin dominance has been well on the rise throughout this whole period. So if we pull up Bitcoin dominance now, you can see Bitcoin dominance is at 58%, which is quite a lot, right? 58% is quite a lot. And it's just been a constant uptrend, which means for altcoins, that altcoins have bled against Bitcoin while it's in this descending sideways channel, right? And as it bounces, altcoins haven't been performing that well. Now, in saying that, the past few weeks have been a little bit better. And I'm going to get into some few altcoin picks and just explain what's been happening with those later in the video. But I just want to focus on sort of Bitcoin and the current state of the market at the moment. So one important thing to do is to always look at RSI, the relative strength index. I feel like this is a great sort of indicator of like, have we topped, have we bottomed, and what is the sort of more likely scenario. So obviously you can never predict the market, and anyone who thinks they can you probably shouldn't listen to them. And again, like that's not what I'm trying to do. Obviously, I'm just trying to make what are some realistic ideas for the potential possibilities of the future. And then you got to look at external events and how they can also impact the price. So obviously things like the ETF is really bullish, and the halving, and probably the next big sort of external event would be the US election. Obviously we know Trump and RFK are very bullish on Bitcoin and would be a big catalyst to moving that forward. But as we've spoken about, we don't know obviously who's going to get elected. So that's always something that you can't predict really. You just have to wait and see and then sort of make some moves accordingly. But we'll just look at the RSI for a second. You can clearly see on the weekly that RSI was really, really high. It was at 86 in March at the start of this, when we sort of topped and then started moving in this downward descending channel. So this whole move sideways was actually probably a good thing. We were moving very quick. When you look at this whole move we made from the bottom at 16K up to 72K, there was no real big corrections, right? Like we saw corrections here, that's 20%, another one here, 20%, and then another one here, 20%, and then you can probably call this one as well another 20% correction. Like these are nice corrections, but at the same time, we're seeing moves like 40%, 40%, 60%, and then 76%. So we're seeing massive moves without big corrections. And when you have that, the RSI is going to build, and you're obviously going to have to eventually have sideways movement and actually correct. And eventually we've finally seen that, and it's been a little bit brutal. I mean, it's nice to have Bitcoin in 63K range, of course, considering where we used to be. But at the same time, like it has been a bit rough, and the altcoins have obviously really bled against Bitcoin in this time. So obviously the RSI has gone down quite a lot to about 50, which just shows that eventually it's going to flip and head back towards the top. Could we go lower? Obviously, we can see the bottom of this sort of descending channel, which is a pretty good indicator for the support range. Like if we trend sideways and head down here, you're looking around 45K to hit this bottom support, and I think it's not out of reach. I mean, especially with the election and other things going on, geopolitical things, we could head and hit this target, hit this support, and then obviously 67K is like the ceiling here. This is the resistance. We need to break through this, hopefully get a confirmation of that breakout, and then head further forward would be very much ideal. So I guess the main point here is that like this whole sideways movement has actually been like pretty good for Bitcoin. It was absolutely required. We were moving way too quick. When you look at the last time we saw ourselves at this point, it was back in 2021 when Bitcoin went just absolutely berserk, right? It went high as RSI up to 94. And when you just look at, there's a lot of people that have different risk metrics as well. And when you look at a lot of those risk metrics, you'll actually find that a lot of those were very high. So that's the other thing. Like one of the things I like to do is synthesize a lot of information. So you'll have a lot of people that talk really bullish about Bitcoin and where it's going to go, talking about 500,000 to a million this cycle. Then you'll have more conservative people who talk about maybe 100,000, 150,000, which is probably a very realistic goal to have for Bitcoin this cycle. And then you'll have other people who obviously have saying that we're topped and we're going to head down. So when you're able to sort of synthesize a lot of the different information that you hear and look at risk metrics and sort of get a general idea, you can sort of make more realistic goals for when you should exit the market, which is ultimately the whole goal of this cycle, right? Like you don't want to hold like I did and many others at these tops and then head down into bear markets because you don't know where Bitcoin could really get to. And so that's what I've done. And that's why I would say, 500,000 is probably a little unrealistic. I don't know if we're going to go there this cycle. That's a huge move. That's like a 8x from where we are currently for Bitcoin. After the rally we've already had this year, seems a little bit probably unrealistic. But 150, 200k might not be that absurd. And then so having those extra strategies is just fundamentally incredibly important. And then another thing to look at is obviously Bitcoin monthly returns. This is super important. I like to look at this quite a lot because September, as you can see, is historically quite a bad month, right? A lot of reds and only 4% last year, and we're currently sitting at 6.7%, right? But the good news is that when you look forward at Q4, you can see this is 2020, which is pretty important because this is following the halving, which is obviously where we are in this cycle right now. And it came off a bad September, and then October was up, November was up, December up. These are big numbers, right? 27%, 43, 47%. These are really high numbers. And then if you look forward further than that, January 2021 into February and March, big numbers. This is a huge rally. Right? Which could be indicative that moving forward into Q4, which is historically a great month, especially in the halving year, that we might see a great move going to Q4. With the end of September, obviously you're going to be a bit more unsure because September's typically quite a bad month. So with September and then the election, this is incredibly volatile time with many big moves to be made. And yeah, following the election is probably the biggest one to sort of get an idea of where we're going to go. So we'll have to see moving forward how this plays out with the election. Moving on to some altcoins, I think one of the best coins would have to be Solana right now. As you can see, it's in this descending triangle, sorry, which is a pretty good, it's typically a bearish pattern, obviously. But when you compare this to altcoins that I'm about to get to, you'll see this is actually quite a good pattern because it means it hasn't been actually bleeding against Bitcoin, as opposed to most altcoins were actually in descending channels. So, and this was also coming off a huge rally from Solana. Solana moved from $21 up to like $200 in like 150 days. That's like an 8.5x. That's a huge move from Solana. And this coin really has a high way to go, I think. And I think a lot of people are very bullish on Solana, choosing it over Ethereum as well as one of their main picks for their portfolio. And also we've just seen the sideways movement as we previously discussed. But this is, very bullish for Solana. As for some altcoins, I'll go through three. The first one's Injective. And what you can see straight away is that it's in this descending channel and has corrected quite a bit. This is the important thing to note, right? Injective got to $52 after being down towards $1.25, right? Huge move up to 52. Finally saw its correction, was about 75%, which is quite a lot. And that hurts for anyone holding Injective like myself. That was a huge correction. And then I think this coin will eventually break out of this descending channel and move forward. This is one of my picks. I just stake it and earn passive rewards that way. When we look at FET, this is another coin in the AI sector. Very similar pattern. And also when you look at the way it's corrected, went down 80%, quite a lot. But on this weekly chart, you can see broke out, came down, corrected, confirmed the breakout, and it's now gone higher. And it's been up for quite a few weeks now, from about 70 cents up to $1.57. So like over a 2x. I did buy around 80 cents, I think, which I'm pretty happy with. And then yes, correct. Confirmed the breakout. So hopefully we can see new all-time highs in the upcoming future. And the last coin I'll talk about is basically has the exact same pattern. Descending channel just bled against Bitcoin like these other two, like a lot of coins, down 75%, and finally has moved up and broken out of that descending channel. So these are 3 coins that I'm pretty bullish on. Would have in my portfolio alongside Solana, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. I think those 3 are sort of the main 3 that you should have in your portfolio. So this was just a general sort of consensus of where the market is at, in my opinion. Feel free to let me know what you think of the current state of the market, what coins that you are personally investing in, if you think it's a good time to actually enter the market or exit, because ultimately that's picking the good coins is one part of it, but then knowing when to enter and exit is also just as important. So thank you for watching, do appreciate it, and yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thank you.